Even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, as Yadunandana Das-2 explains in the Brahma Samhita, neither Brahma nor Shiva can act completely independently. They are all depending on the Lord. So, and also that's the case of Yamaraj, also depend on the Lord for his authority. So the pious living entities in the universe who comply with the orders of the Lord, they become more powerful. Those who are more surrendered to Krishna, they become more powerful. It's interesting. If you surrender to the Lord, sometimes you can become more powerful than Krishna. Which is interesting. Sometimes Krishna takes the role of becoming less powerful than his devotee, and that manifests in various ways. For example, becoming the charioteer of Arjuna, or becoming controlled by his devotees. Prabhupada in many places, he makes that point in many places, even in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, that Krishna is very fond of becoming treated like somebody who's less important. This is more intimately than now we're talking about, of course. But Krishna is not so fond of receiving very formal prayers. Of course, we should pray to Krishna formally if we don't have any, as long as we don't have this spontaneous love for Krishna. Then formal prayers are we must dutifully perform our formal prayers. In form of, samsara dharma and all these things. That is a formal prayer to the Lord. But everybody's offering up some nice prayers, and he's very pleased. But he's more pleased when his servant sees him out of love. Of course, this requires a very deep love of God, and you cannot do this if you don't have any love of God, you will just become offender. But when he becomes treated like somebody less important, even less important than the other children, but like when his mother chastises him as a less important child, not so important, that he does. Srila Prabhupada says, when a pure devotee out of love chastises him like that, he enjoys that unlimitedly. So we cannot do that. But we can enjoy the fact that there is a platform like that by reading about the pure devotees' dealings with Krishna. So the Lord is so powerful, the most powerful master, and if we serve the Lord, we also become powerful. That's the point. We become powerful when we serve Krishna. Just like it requires. For how long is the lecture supposed to go, Madhusha?
A quarter to.
Quarter to?
Yeah, plenty of time.
Yes.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
So we have to serve Krishna in a very intense way. And the desire to serve intensely, or Tivrena Bhakti Yoga as it is called. Tivra means very sharp, like the sun's rays. That's how our service has to be very concentrated, very focused, very ekeha, kurana, one-pointed attention, not branching out into many branches. Because in that way we will attract the attention of the Lord if our service is very concentrated and very exactly according to the previous acharyas. Once I was driving to pick up my kids at school, and there was a Prabhupada lecture on the radio. Must have been Tuesday, I guess. Yeah. And Prabhupada said that the chanting of the holy name is like paving the way. It's like clearing the path, taking away the dirty things, so that you can receive the message of the Bhagavatam. That's what he said. And Prabhupada is very much making the point that he says that in the, I don't know if the second canto or the first canto, says that chanting of the holy names does not mean only chanting 16 rounds a day of Hare Krishna. It means also chanting and hearing the message of the Bhagavatam, of the Bhagavad Gita. So both things have to be there. The chanting of the holy name, in order to clear our minds to an extent that we can actually receive the message of the Bhagavatam. Such is the importance of the message of the Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada even says that in the beginning of the first canto, that one may, and in the Indian edition, this is written with big letters. One may try many different ways of self-realization, but one will in the end find that there's nothing will be useful except for the Bhagavatam. Says that. Of course, that can be said about the holy name also in one sense. But Prabhupada made the point that you have to chant the holy name under the direction of the pure devotee. So what does that mean? It means the direction of the pure devotee is basically what Prabhupada has written in his books. That is the direction how to chant the holy name. So unless we read all Prabhupada's books and know them by heart, how can we chant the holy name properly? I made this point many times before, but otherwise we'll just end up like somebody who's just chanting the holy name for fun, or to attract attention. And if we don't know what the holy name is, then we will preach it in ways that become offensive. Just like if you preach to people who are not interested in hearing about it, or forcing your preaching on, like that. So we have to, alongside with the chanting, we have to always keep listening to Prabhupada. Because what Prabhupada says, or our own spiritual master says, is coming down through the Guru Parampara and is not changed. So the strength of our movement is that we are not changing the message that's coming down through Guru Parampara. We cannot change that. We cannot in any way change it. Prabhupada says every word of the Bhagavad is important. We should not even try to avoid one word, he says. There are maybe sections of the Bhagavad that we think, oh, that was funny, it was an interesting story. But it's all the same value. It's all the same spiritual value. And as Prabhupada used to say, there's no use becoming a professional reciter of the Bhagavatam, just jumping to the 10th canto and avoiding the previous cantos as if they were not important. He says no real devotee should engage in such discrimination. Every word of the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita are equally important. Of course, usually that's not our problem. People are trying to... Our problem is to get any interest at all in the Bhagavatam. To become at all interested in the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada is complaining that in India they are selectively interested in the Bhagavatam. They're only interested in the 10th canto. Here in the West, nobody's interested in the Bhagavatam at all. Even you try to get the devotees struggle to get the devotees interested in the Bhagavatam. But in any way, in any way possible, we should try to get our minds fixed on the message of the Bhagavatam. These various ways of purification, chanting of the holy name, which is of course a means and an end in itself, but it is also necessary for us to hear the Bhagavad, to chant proper rounds, to get rid of... The point is that Nashta Prayesha Bhagaveshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Prashok Bhakti Bhagavati Naishtaki. That we have to, by our sadhana, destroy the influence in our minds of the lower modes of nature. These lower modes of nature, passion and ignorance, make us restless. It makes it very difficult to concentrate for a long time. That is why we get bored. Boredom means mode of passion and ignorance. Boredom is not boredom. Boredom means suffering. To say you're bored means you're suffering. You're suffering. And if you're suffering, that means you're not Yadunandana. And that means you're under the influence of ignorance. So that means something has to be done. Some purification has to take place, some kind of change of mind. So, as Prabhupada says, we just keep on hearing the message, that's all. We keep on hearing the message of the Bhagavad, and in this way, we become more and more blessed. Just like he mentions in the relationship in the first chapter of the third canto, I think, where Vidura is going on a pilgrimage tour. Somebody is related from Mahabharata. And Prabhupada says that Vidura, he felt that he had become contaminated by too much association with Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra, and he needed to go on a pilgrimage. But really, he said, pure devotee has no need of going on pilgrimage. He doesn't feel any inconvenience anyway. But he used the opportunity to go to listen to Maitreya Muni, to be more and more and more and more blessed by the transcendental message. And I thought, yeah, we need to be more and more blessed. So every day you should hear the message of the Bhagavatam, because every day you become more and more and more and more blessed by that message. And the message of the Bhagavatam, the chanting of the holy name, the worshipping of the deities, the association of the devotees, it's all something, and to stay in the temple, to stay in the holy place, these 5 basic principles of devotional life. When they are served properly, they are gradually taking away the lower emotional nature in our consciousness, and at one point we will feel attraction. At one point we will stop feeling any attraction for the messages of the material world, or for material beauties, or materialistic agitations of passion and ignorance, and we will just gravitate naturally toward the message of the parampara. Nothing else will seem very interesting to us. But it requires a bit of endeavor to get rid of the low emotional nature. So it's like eating jaundice. No, sorry. It's like when you have jaundice and eat candy sugar. It's not very tasty. Who was that? Was it Harikesh? He said he had jaundice once, and he was eating his rock sugar, and he said it was not exactly bitter, but it just tasted, but that's the same thing, you know. Hearing the pure devotee is very dry to hear Prabhupada if you're contaminated by the low emotional nature. If the only thing you can think of is, you know, sex and drugs and rock and roll, and then you try to listen to Prabhupada, it becomes very dry. To hear the pure devotee becomes very, very dry when you're contaminated. But even so, it is the medicine. If we make the endeavor, make the effort of hearing the pure devotee anyway, even though it sounds so dry, then at one point it will become interesting. It will become intriguing. It's something that we want to hear. So the only thing is to keep on sticking to the fire. We keep our souls in the fire of purification and not go out of the fire. That's the whole point. When you go out of the fire, then the contamination comes back and the whole thing becomes delayed. So, with what speed we're going back to Godhead, then nobody can force anybody to go back to Godhead but ourselves. And once we take the step to chant Hare Krishna, associate with the devotees, preach and become initiated, then already we have, to some extent, attracted the attention of the Lord, and He will never really let us be. The only thing is we can delay the process by being nonsense. That's all maintaining attachments, as the Therapeutic says, maintain material attachments, even if you're understanding so many instructions. So this we have a tendency to do. But even so, abhichet suduracharo, even though sometimes we may commit blunders, do horrible things, but because somehow we are rightly situated in our mind, our idea is to go back to God, even though we make mistakes every now and then. So all devotees who do like that have to be considered saintly. So it's a very good thing to consider all devotees saintly. Who knows who's going to become the next Acharya? You never know. So better treat the devotees as saints, because you might be dealing with somebody who is the future being Acharya of the world. You don't know. There was one, this story about a bunch of monks who were a little bit, it was a bunch of Christian monks somewhere living in a castle somewhere, and becoming a little bit bored with life, I guess, and they become not so good friends with each other, not so nice to each other. And then another monk came from very advanced monk came from another place and says, one of you is going to become the next big spiritual leader. And then he went away without saying anything else, and they became very respectful towards each other. So, in order to treat each other nicely, we should see each other as very, very big and powerful persons. very important, and that's why be very respectful to the devotees, because devotees are very special people. It's a very special thing to be in a temple, to take shelter of Krishna, so it requires very big. Actually, all devotees should be worshipped. So if we think about each other like that, then there's no offense, and you're very respectful to each other, and Krishna becomes very pleased with that. So I don't know if we should keep some time for questions, maybe. Your hand was first.
It was just that that you said that in the heavenly planet that there are Indra and they have some position, but I just read this story where Indra fell down because of offenses, and he had to take shelter in the stem of the lotus flower, and then Nahusha, he took his position, and then Nahusha got attracted to Indra's wife, and then he had these sages. Indra's wife, in order to save herself, she got this advice that tell Nahusha to get the sages to carry him on a palanquin when he wanted to enjoy with her. So and then the sages, they cursed him. So my point was just that even on the up there, everyone is a servant to.
You can become a master, but it's a risky business. That's the point. You will not be there forever. Yeah.
You talked about that we should hear the Bhagavatam continuously, to be continuously blessed.
Nityan Bhagavata Seva. Yeah.
I'm always very inspired when I come across these passages in the Bhagavatam where it says, and by hearing this narration attentively, you get these and these and these benefits.
Yeah.
And I always feel like level up.
Yeah.
But is that a wrong mentality?
No, it's good. You can get all these things. Also, all these other blessings come too. But don't stay there. Go further. Always at the end of the story, if you want to become powerful, if you want to become popular, if you want to become rich, you should hear this story. So, by serving Krishna, everything is achieved, spiritual and material well-being. Devotees are not so interested in these material blessings, but if you want, you can have that too. Whatever blessing you want, you can have by reading the Bhagavad. Prabhupada says Bhagavad is good for both spiritual and material life. So you can have both. A very advanced devotee, he can even have spiritual life and a very advanced material life without being attached to it. But Krishna gives it to him. Like Dhruva Maharaj. He wanted a kingdom bigger than his grandfather's. And then at the end, when he saw Krishna, he regretted that he had wanted these things, but Krishna gave it to him anyway. So he had to enjoy it. He had to become a king for 36,000 years and then get a whole planet for the rest of eternity waiting with you. So Krishna gives what you want. So, yeah.
You mentioned this, that Lord Vishnu, he is not influenced by the material energy, but when he is, he's become Lord Shiva.
Yeah.
But also we hear that Lord Vishnu is the maintainer of the material universes.
Yeah.
So in that sense, he's in the material.
In that sense, I even read to one statement that Lord Vishnu, when he's in the material world as Lord Vishnu, not Shiva but Vishnu, he's in a slight contact with the material energy to a very, very subtle extent, but I don't know.
It's not influenced, it's just
he has to do with it, but he's not under it, so to speak. Lord Shiva, he sometimes acts as if he's a little bit influenced, but that's also a kind of Leela, it's Krishna's Leela. There are many Rudra forms. There's Sadashiva and Shiva in the material world, and then the 11 Rudras. But they're all Shiva Tattva, which is a special Tattva. It's Vishnu in contact with the material energy, as opposed to Jiva Tattva, which is under the influence of the material energy. Under the influence, it becomes overwhelmed by the material energy, Jiva Tattva, because of its minute size.
You also already mentioned this, that the Bhagavatam, everything in the Bhagavatam is real and should be taken literally. I don't remember how you termed it.
Prabhupada says we should not try to avoid even one word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we hear stories in the Bhagavatam of how brahmacharis should live, how sannyasis should live, how vanaprastha should live. That is
The
practice.
seventh canto?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like nobody does that because it's maybe it's
No,
not
but
doable or it's
actually,
not
we
practical.
can appreciate that that was the standard. Didn't even brush their teeth. You know? But
Cut their
and they
nails.
didn't cut their nails or shave or anything, like really rugged kind of fellows. That was but now Prabhupada gave us the standard of how we should live. We follow that. So there might be details which differ, but the principle is the same, like renunciation. Rupa Goswami says that in the Bhagavad-Gita. The details of how a certain spiritual master may order his disciples may differ, but the basic principle is the same. Service to Krishna and renunciation. So brahmachari, we may not be able to follow that traditional brahmachari life with the walking around with a deer skin and a pot and not shaving, bare feet, especially in this climate. But we do as best as we can. I saw there's a brahmachari endeavor here, two new, orange. Very good. And you're staying orange, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Yeah, the same principle was also with sannyas, that Lord Chaitanya said that not to take sannyas just for the sake of taking it, but we are still encouraged to take it, just following his footsteps for preaching.
Yeah, actually there's, in the Kali Yuga, sannyas is not recommended, as is not either Go-yagya or horse-yagya or Ashwamedha yagya. These are forbidden, or to beget sons and your brother's wife is also forbidden, along with sannyas. But we take sannyas for preaching. But if we do take sannyas, you have to observe it very strictly. Like Lord Chaitanya, he took sannyas, despite the warnings of the Shastra, but he was very strict. He didn't even allow one of his disciples, Chokahardas, even to look at an old woman. If you read the story, it was actually quite an old woman he looked at, but still he was rejected. So sannyas is very, very strict. You can take sannyas for preaching Krishna consciousness, but it's necessary to be as spotlessly white as a clean sheet. The sannyasi cannot have any spots on his reputation. So that's why there is a warning against it. What was the point?
Yeah, that's a question. It's sannyas in stage. Lord Chaitanya.
So anything else? Otherwise I think we can stop here. Anything else? No. Yes?
Please come back as often as possible and keep class.
Yeah.
And better not so often, because otherwise you get bored of me.
No.
All goes to Sri Guru Ganga.
That must be due to our karma and raja.